There was once a boy named Leo. He wasn't born damaged. He wasn't born angry or lost. Like every child, he entered this world with wonder in his eyes, constantly asking questions and dreaming in brilliant colors. But the world didn't cherish that part of him. Not in the way he desperately needed. His father would return home late, his presence loud and saturated with anger. His mother would retreat into wordless silence. Leo learned to navigate his own home on tiptoes, committing every floorboard's groan to memory, as if they were explosive devices. The dinner table was less a place for meals and more a combat zone. Words were hurled like blades, and apologies were never spoken. Yet what truly broke Leo wasn't solely the trauma. It was the denial, the pretense, the forced grins in public, the collective refusal to ever acknowledge something here is broken. That systematic distortion of his reality that became the true venom. You see, the human psyche is resilient, but it has its limits. Trauma doesn't just reside in memory. It embeds itself in the flesh. It twists the nervous system. It rewires your perception of the world, of others, and, most painfully, of yourself. It teaches a child they are unsafe, unworthy, unreal. And as years passed, the boy grew. The mask grew with him. Leo became charismatic, witty. He mastered reading people, shape-shifting into whatever they desired. He became an expert performer. Yet beneath the surface, he was vacant, hollow, like a house abandoned after an inferno. The structure remained, but the life within was gone. This is the work of unprocessed trauma. It fractures the self. Carl Jung once observed, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." Leo inherited that tragedy, not merely through genes, but through the silence, the repression, the icy legacy of emotional neglect. His descent wasn't instantaneous. It began with sleeplessness, a persistent, gut-level conviction that something was profoundly wrong, even when all appeared normal. Then emerged the paranoia, the fury, the corrosive self-loathing. He couldn't trust a soul, not even himself. His relationships became perilous. He'd push people away, then plead for them to return. Love transformed into a war zone, where he was both defender and destroyer. He sought therapy once. He confessed to the therapist that he felt numb, that his dreams were disjointed, nonsensical, that sometimes his reflection showed a stranger. They called it anxiety, depression, but these diagnoses couldn't reach the true beast, the interred agony for which he had no words. Because when trauma is neglected, it doesn't vanish. It conceals itself, it petrifies, it bides its time, and eventually it erupts, perhaps in a collapse, perhaps in an addiction, perhaps in the abrupt quiet of the one who once laughed most freely. Leo started speaking to himself. Not mere musings, but full dialogues, disputes, shrieks. He passed mirrors without seeing himself. He began carrying a journal, scrawling thoughts unintelligible to others. A friend said he'd changed. The truth was, he'd always been this way. He'd simply exhausted his capacity to conceal it. This is the unspoken truth about losing your mind. It's not madness, it's fatigue. It's the spirit surrendering the act. When someone spends a lifetime suppressing their injuries, their terrors, their trauma, the psyche eventually splinters. Because the mind isn't machinery. It's a delicate tapestry, woven from memory, emotion, belief, and meaning. When too much of that fabric is steeped in anguish and quiet, it starts to rip. Leo began trusting the internal voices. He began detecting symbols in meaningless places. He called them connections. He believed the cosmos was addressing him directly, not figuratively, literally. Every commercial, every stranger's look, every hallway light's flicker carried a coded message. What was truly occurring? His mind, desperate for order, was fabricating meaning from bedlam. It was striving to rationalize the never resolved. This is the vicious deceit of unhealed trauma. It denies you peace. It denies you oblivion. It masquerades as anxiety, as rage, even as divine revelation. But behind the facade is just a child wailing, "See me, rescue me, help me." Yet by then, it often feels too late. Because the world fears madness. It sensationalizes it. And Leo, like countless others, risked becoming another warning, another datum, another mystery. He didn't break because he was feeble. He broke because his endurance finally expired. Some name it insanity. But Carl Jung proposed another term, individuation. The journey toward wholeness by confronting the shadow self. For someone like Leo, it felt anything but noble. It felt like suffocation, like being dragged into something primeval and horrifying. You don't abruptly lose your sanity. It's a gradual process, like a hairline cracking glass that slowly branches out. Outsiders might say he snapped. The soundless struggles, the lonely nights, the moments of absolute solitude. When you enter the past, you don't kill it. You amplify it. Unhealed trauma becomes a phantom. And phantoms don't perish, they linger. Leo wasn't merely wrestling with memories. He was bearing the cumulative emotional burden of years of abandonment, bewilderment, shame, and unvoiced sorrow. Every childhood silence echoed back in adulthood. Here, the boundary between sanity and madness dissolves. Psychology speaks of the false self, the persona crafted purely for survival. Not for living, not for flourishing, just for enduring. This false self dons masks, fulfills expectations, and buries the truth so profoundly that you yourself forget its existence. But that truth does not forget you. Inevitably, the mask fractures. The facade can no longer support the load, and when it shatters, what remains? Only the shadow. The aspect you never wished to encounter. The rage you disowned. The grief you minimized. The internal whisper. You were never loved as you needed to be. This is the essence of going crazy. It is not a disease. It is not possession. It is the human soul breaking under the strain of perpetual pretense. Madness is the psyche's rebellion. It is the scream of a mind too long silenced. And paradoxically, it is also an opportunity. Because when everything implodes, when the lies dissolve and reality warps, you are finally confronted with the one thing that can redeem you, the truth. Leo's truth was this: he was mistreated. He was overlooked. His true self was never recognized. For years, he convinced himself it was unimportant. But it was, profoundly so. Carl Jung taught that healing commences when the unconscious is made conscious. That the simple courage to face your darkness, not flee it, marks the start of salvation. But here is the difficulty. Facing your past means experiencing everything you've labored to avoid. And that is terrifying, because beneath the numbness, beneath the madness, lies something more frightening still: vulnerability. To enter your shadow, you must soften. You must mourn. And mourning is a form of death. Leo began to write. Not for insight, not even for mending, just for release. The pages were disordered. Doodles, sketches, sometimes just one phrase written again and again. I did not deserve this. That phrase transformed him, not because it brought serenity, but because it granted him authorization. Authorization to finally feel anger, to feel sorrow, to feel, and in that he rediscovered a long-lost sensation, hope. Healing does not start with determination or optimism. It starts with raw honesty, and honesty is born in suffering. Leo returned to therapy, but this time he didn't strive to seem remarkable. He didn't posture as enlightened or profound. He simply grieved. He wept for the boy forced to mature too soon, for the man who never knew security, for the insanity that became comprehensible once he stopped fleeing from it. He was not healed, but he was no longer adrift. He realized the madness was never the adversary. It was a dispatch, a plea for recognition from the exiled fragments of his soul. And when he finally unlocked the door, those fragments did not assault him. They expressed gratitude, because at last he was listening. If you have ever felt you are breaking, if existence feels deafening, and you feel irreparably shattered, know this: you are not shattered. You are submerged. And healing is not about transformation. It is about recollection, remembering who you were before the suffering made you forget. How do you start? Begin with stillness. Not the hollow stillness of detachment, but the profound stillness of deep listening. Write, yell, walk, weep, but do it with awareness. Do it without shame. Read literature that looks beyond surface symptoms. Works that explore the unconscious. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Owning Your Own Shadow by Robert A. Johnson. The Drama of the Gifted Child by Alice Miller. Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. These are not mere books. They're reflective surfaces. They won't hand you solutions, but they will grant you the right to pose the meaningful questions. And above all, do not seek healing to achieve perfection. Heal to achieve authenticity, so you can gaze into the mirror and know the face looking back. Because the world has no need for more masks. It needs more souls who have journeyed through their shadows and returned, bearing the light of their hard-won truth.